Call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting, July 18th, 2017. We have a moment of silence. Comments from the public? Hearing none. Consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 7.
Budget Amendment, North Kansas City Business Council Matching Grant, Resolution Number 17-050.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. At your last meeting, the City Council approved of the city providing funds for the 50% match of a Missouri Division of Tourism grant obtained by the North Kansas City Business Council. It's designed to attract more tourists from outside of the Kansas City, Missouri area, and for also the request from the Business Council was that the city fund 100% of the production costs for a television commercial that was received through this grant that would play in the Omaha, Nebraska, Council Bluffs, Iowa area later this summer. The total budget amendment in the Convention and Tourism Fund for this fiscal year would be $8,600, and a budget amendment resolution is presented accordingly.
Move to approve resolution number 17-050.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 8.
Application for Conditional Use Permit, 2620 Burlington. Bill Number 7213, Ordinance Number 9010.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the city's building official, David Harris.
Mayor and council, the applicant of Demo Architects is working with the property owner, Northtown Devco, on a tenant finish for a church to be located at 2620 Burlington. A church is allowed in the C3 zoning district. However, due to the required amount of parking for the church and the number of existing parking spaces assigned to the existing tenant of the shopping center, there's not enough parking on that parcel. The required amount of parking can be accommodated by establishing a shared parking arrangement. The zoning ordinance permits shared parking with a conditional use permit. The Planning Commission held the required public hearing on Thursday, July 6th. No one spoke at the public hearing. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the conditional use permit for the City Council's recommendation for approval. We have Mandy Moore here for the architectural firms. She can answer any questions you may have.
Couple of questions. First of all, so do they have a parking agreement in place, or will that be when they come for the occupation permit, or?
Once you approve this, we will sit down and develop the final draft of the shared parking, but the Planning Commission was presented with a parking plan.
Okay, and which building is this on Burlington then? Is it, I mean, I know the address, but it kind of like where it's at?
The adjacent tenant is Zone 6, and then there is Advanced Auto.
Oh, okay, so it's that building. Okay, all right, cool. Thank you.
I think it's always good to have a church in the community, another church in the community. Can't be any drawbacks to that, is my opinion.
Yeah, do we,
has somebody looked at the parking lot to see how many parking spaces are actually available on, I'm assuming Sunday, Wednesday services that they're going to be having?
Yes, that's correct. Currently, the amount of available parking spots are 376, and we need a total of 234. However, 244 of those spots are being used by other tenants. But because the adjacent properties are owned by the same company that owns where the church will be, they have been able to arrange an agreement with these tenants that they can use the available parking spots on Sundays, which is really when they will be functioning. And there's a total of, I believe, 700 occupants that may potentially be there. So yes, that has all been arranged.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit to permit a shared parking in excess arrangement for 2620 Burlington Street, subject to the conditions incorporated herein.
I move that bill number 7213 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9010.
Second.
All in favor?
Call the roll.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Lodahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit to permit a shared parking and access arrangement for 2620 Burlington Street, subject to the conditions incorporated herein.
Is there anybody here that's representing that church, the architect? The people that run it, not here.
No, we are, the Otomo, the architecture firm, is representing the
I
client.
see, okay. I just wanted to meet him.
Yeah.
Number 9.
Code modification for an individual case, cause KC North Church, resolution number 17-051.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Mr. Harris.
This request is for consideration of approval of modification of a plumbing code to allow the reduction in the number of toilet facilities for the Cause Kansas City North Church. The Cause Church has a leasehold to occupy 26,478 square feet of tenant space at 2620 Burlington. The 26,478 square feet of space, according to the building code regulations, it calculates at 1,203 occupants, which will require 8 men's public toilet fixtures and 11 women's toilet fixtures. The church estimates that their proposed maximum occupancy at this location will be not more than 700 occupants. Based on 700 occupants, 4 men's plumbing toilet fixtures are required and 6 women's toilet fixtures are required, and 1 family toilet facility. Currently, there's 4 men toilet fixtures and 5 women fixtures. The architect, representative of the building owner, Northtown Devco, and the church has requested that the code modification specifically for 2620 Burlington with Cause Kansas City North Church as the sole occupant and proposed tenant finish design with the occupancy not to exceed 700 occupants. Based on the submittal plans, staff believes that this request in a reduction of toilet fixtures is appropriate.
Any questions?
Are they currently building it out now? Have they started, do you know?
No, they have not.
Okay, and then the church itself, do you know how many current members it has?
No, I do not.
Okay, so if it currently has 700 members,
The information is that they expect to not exceed 700 members.
okay, and then so if they end up exceeding 700 members, would we then be able to say you need to now add some more toilets, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
This would be, if they exceed 700 members, they would need to come back to our office and we would work something out and come before you again
Right.
for some adjustments. It's also solely for the church, so if another occupant takes this space, then this does not go with the occupant's
Right.
space.
Is this a church that's moving from another location or starting from scratch?
It's my understanding they're moving from another location.
Got a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 17-051.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 10.
Second Amendment to Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions for Armor Road Redevelopment Area. Bill number 7214, ordinance 99011.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions, which hereafter I'll refer to as CCRs, are legally binding restrictions on the use, development, and appearance of property. CCRs are commonly used to establish basic standards for development, whether it's a new single-family subdivision or a commercial development. In December of 2015, the City Council approved a declaration of CCRs for the Armor Road redevelopment area. It established basic design standards for development within the area, prohibited certain undesirable uses, specified how the conditions were to be enforced, set limits on the use of hazardous materials in the area. The first amendment to that was done on August 2nd, 2016, when the council amended those CCRs by removing the former HAPCO property from them. As the development of this area has progressed, the master developers developed plans for the area that call for the creation of common area tracts, 2 of which would be used for stormwater detention on the site. That would be part of an overall detention plan for the redevelopment area. Those common tracts areas, according to this amendment, would be maintained by an owners association that would be formed. So this second amendment just provides for the details of the formation of that owners association, describes the duties of it to maintain the stormwater detention facilities, and establishes how it would impose assessments on property owners within that area to pay for the actions necessary to maintain those stormwater detention facilities. So that is the matter that is before you, and we recommend approval.
First reading?
Second.
Oh,
Well, sorry.
Yeah, they call it a facility. Now, is it gonna be like the park where it's an open, low areas, the whole water, or is it gonna be a building?
Oh, no. These will be stormwater detention ponds.
Okay, just like the park then.
Yeah, there are 2 of them.
All right.
On
And
the
they work
site.
very well in the park, so, okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, I mean, there's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Oh,
I second.
Oh, okay, you seconded it.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance approving Second Amendment to the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions affecting property within the Armor Road redevelopment area.
I move that bill number 7214 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9011.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Lodahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance approving Second Amendment to the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions affecting property within the Armor Road redevelopment area.
Okay, number 11.
Amendment of City Code Section 17.76.030, Commercial Parking Requirements. Bill number 7215, ordinance number 9012.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. As council knows, we've had a management intern working for us this summer, Stacy Weideman. She's a graduate student at Indiana University, and Stacy has worked on this particular revision to the code that is being proposed to you tonight. So I will turn this item over to her to present to you.
Thank you. Currently, the parking in the CO, C1, and C3 zoning districts is calculated based on gross floor area at a ratio of 4.5 spaces per every 1,000 square feet. This is for all uses within those districts. However, restaurants are a bit different than other uses in that they like to provide more parking to accommodate their customers. As you may remember, Wendy's recently applied for a conditional use permit for parking that exceeds 150% of the required amount. Staff has already taken several pre-development meetings for restaurants and anticipates several more conditional use permits specifically for increased parking for restaurants absent any ordinance change. The goal of the proposed amendment is to adopt a more efficient parking calculation strategy that is also in line with the priorities of restaurant developers. The amendment staff is proposing modifies one section of the city code, which changes the measure for restaurants in those commercial districts from gross floor area to maximum seating capacity. The proposed ratio is 1 parking spot for every 2.5 seats based on the maximum design seating capacity. A public hearing was held on July 6th. No one from the public spoke on the matter, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval.
Questions?
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending section 17.76.030 C.2. Spaces required by zoning district of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by amending chapter 17.76.030 thereof.
I move that bill number 7215 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9012.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Lodahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance amending section 17.76.030.C.2, spaces required by zoning district of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by amending chapter 17.76.030 thereof. Amendments to the 1411 Quebec Street Redevelopment Corporation 353 Plan and Contract. Bill number 7210, ordinance number 9007.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Assistant City Administrator, Mike Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Want to give you a quick background here, both for this item as well as item 13. They're going to be related. So this is amendments to both the 353 redevelopment plan as well as the 353 contract related to 1411 Quebec. Thankfully, somebody got ahead of me and got you some pictures to look at. So the three photos here, this is the before picture of what the property looked like prior to the redevelopment taking place. And so just whoever's got a leisurely trigger finger, feel free to scroll through there. So in April of 2016, the City Council approved a Chapter 353 tax abatement for this existing North Kansas City company to do a complete reconstruction of their property at 1411 Quebec. In that case, Fairbanks Investments sought and was granted a 353 Chapter tax abatement for 100% abatement of real property taxes for the first 10 years and 50% for an additional 2. Finally, for the 12-year period, the corporation would be anticipated to make payments in lieu of taxes in an amount equal to its current property taxes. So that was what we did back in April of 2016. Since then, the project's been completed, and the only thing about it was that it got delayed. If you remember right, this was one that there was some associated rail spur improvements as well, and so there was a railroad contractor, I'll say, that got a little bit behind on their scheduling, and so that kind of set it back something in the order of 2 quarters. So it was approved in April of 16. and was occupied this fourth quarter, or the plan was to occupy it this fourth quarter of 16. Unfortunately, they weren't able to occupy the space until the second quarter of 17. So basically, we have two amendments here under Ordinance 9007, one of which is to amend the 353 plan to reflect the time change, and the other one to reflect the amendment to the contract for the same time change. And everything has been completed according to plan. The other thing I would mention here quickly is the documents talk about a certificate of completion that the city needs to approve, and that is the next item, Ordinance 9008. And per Section 7 of the contract, that certificate of completion is ready. So basically, besides this, there will be in a nearby future meeting one additional approval that would transfer the interest from Fairbanks to the Redevelopment Corporation, which is typical under Chapter 353s. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. The property owner and applicant are here as well. So I think that's that.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving the First Amendment to the development plan submitted by 1411 Quebec Street Redevelopment Corporation for certain property located at 1411 Quebec Street in North Kansas City, Missouri, and approving the First Amendment to Chapter 353 redevelopment contract between the city and 1411 Quebec Street Redevelopment Corporation.
I move that bill number 7210 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9007.
Second.
All in favor?
Call the roll.
Oh, call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Lodahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance approving the First Amendment to the development plan submitted by 1411 Quebec Street Redevelopment Corporation for certain property located at 1411 Quebec Street in North Kansas City, Missouri, and approving the First Amendment to Chapter 353 redevelopment contract between the city and 1411 Quebec Street Redevelopment Corporation.
Number 13.
Approval of Certificate of Completion, 1411 Quebec Street Redevelopment Project. Bill number 7211, ordinance number 9008.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving a certificate of completion for the project described in the Chapter 353 redevelopment contract between the city and 1411 Quebec Street Redevelopment Corporation.
I move that bill number 7211 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9008.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Lodahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance approving a certificate of completion for the project described in the Chapter 353 development contract between the city and 1411 Quebec Street Redevelopment Corporation.
I might say that's a really attractive and good-looking building down there, so thank you. Number 14.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through July 14th, 2017.
Bill number.
Oh, I didn't put a number on there? I'll read it off.
No, you didn't say it.
Okay, it's bill number, bill number 7212, ordinance number 9009.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was confused. An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through July 14th, 2017.
I move that bill number 7212 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9009.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Lodahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through July 14th, 2017.
Mr. Eric.
Thank you, sir. We have a number of items under staff comments tonight. First of all, the financial report that we present to you on a quarterly basis indicating where we stand in terms of revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year is in your packet. If you have any questions about that, Finance Manager Shirley Land is here to try to answer them. Do you have any questions? All right. Next item, there's also a memo in your packet from the Police Chief, Steve Beamer, regarding the Police Academy and schedule for new hires that were approved by the passage of the public safety sales tax by voters in April. Chief?
Thank you, sir. We're moving through the process to identify the candidates that we may be hiring for the 6 police officer positions. And one of the things we're having to identify is there's a number of these candidates that, excuse me, may not be post-qualified. In other words, they're going to have to attend the academy. Originally, we thought the Kansas City Police Academy was going to be starting sometime in September. This means we're going to have these individuals on board in the current fiscal year to get them into that academy class. Pardon me. If we have to, we could hire them as early as August to accomplish what we need to do. Didn't cough all night. Worst case scenario, $79,000 for salaries and tuition in the current fiscal year. Now, we've also got anticipated surplus in our budget that will offset that to a worst case scenario of about $32,000. So if we have to make a change, it would be wrapped up in the final budget amendment that the council approves at the end of the budget year. We wouldn't come back to you for a specific budget amendment. We just want the council's blessing to hire these people in the coming, or in this fiscal year, so that we don't have to wait until next February to get them into a class then.
Question.
Tom?
That's
Sorry.
okay, I understand. Is the $79,000 is for all 6 proposed candidates?
Yes, because it's a relatively, that would include the tuition cost, because the tuition would have to be in this fiscal year since they started this year, and their salary for approximately 6 weeks.
How long does it take them to go through post? I don't remember.
It's about a 6-month academy. So we will, if they start in August, we won't see them out of the academy until next March. And then they've still got 12 weeks of field training behind that. Friday, we got an email from the academy saying, originally they said September start date, then they said August, then they said, well, we may wait till October. Even if they do an October class, it is likely we'll have to hire these people just before the end of the fiscal year to get them on board and get them ready to start the academy. Right. So it's a moving target right now in terms of when the class is going to start and how many people we're going to put in it. And that's why we can't give you a definitive number right now, but we can give you a worst case scenario.
No problem.
We need to move on this and expedite it and get it taken care of, get our police officers on the street.
I agree with Bill. You know, the public was kind enough to approve that public safety sales tax. You know, let's get them in and let's get them going.
Quick question. So of the $79,000 that it would take to get all 6 candidates in, you're really only short, if that was who went in and who started this year, you're really only short $32,000.
And that's based upon what we estimate our budget surplus to be in the salary line at the end of the year.
Okay.
Based upon...
It's a moving target, but that's about what you're thinking.
Right. I mean, the total cost would be this, but by the time you factor in our budget surplus and wrap that into year end, we're about $32,000 short.
Okay.
What's the chances of one of them not making it through the class?
That possibility always exists, so we put someone into the academy and they do not complete it. I can't, in the past 10 to 12 years, I can think of one individual that did not complete the academy. We've had some that completed the academy and then did not successfully complete field training. And I'll tell you right now, hardest part of my job is trying to find people that you think are going to fit all the qualifications that we expect to see of an officer out here on the street and do well in the academy and everything else. It's the hardest part of the job. We're interviewing people right now, and we're having conversations with them, and I wish I had a crystal ball.
Okay.
Hey, okay, so we're putting some candidates into the police academy. Does that mean that this is like just somebody off the street that's applying as a candidate, or is this already an experienced police officer from another state that's trying to come to Missouri? I guess I'm just kind of curious as to who are the applicants? Are they just...
Okay, when we open an application process, anyone and everyone can apply. If a person, before a person can be a police officer in the state of Missouri, they have to be certified by the Missouri Board of Police Officer Standards and Training, POST. So you cannot be a police officer if you're not POST certified. If you're already a police officer here in the state of Missouri, then you meet that standard already. If you come to us from another state, you can take a test in Jeff City that allows you to become POST certified if you can demonstrate your knowledge, your skills, and ability. So you can't necessarily transfer a certification from one state to another, but you can test out and become POST certified if you move here from another state. If you're not one of those two categories, then you have to attend a state-approved police academy to become POST certified.
So we think that most likely the candidates are going to be fresh and need the academy. I mean, I guess I'm curious to find out if are there people that are applying for these positions that are already police officers that are trying to move to North Kansas City, or I mean, I'm just curious.
Yes, we've had. I can't tell you the percentages, but I'm going to say ballpark about 70-30 who are already POST certified versus those that are not. Many people, and there's some police departments out there that will not hire an individual if they're not already POST certified. That is not our a position here, because we want to make sure we hire the people with the right core values and the right personality traits to be a police officer, not just those that are POST certified. Of those that we've got that have applied, they're already POST certified. We've identified issues with some of those individuals at previous employers that would tell me that they may not be a good fit for North Kansas City. So there's still some post-certified candidates in the process, but not enough. We know we're going to be sending some to the academy.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think we all agree to go ahead with it.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So you may well be seeing a budget amendment before the end of the fiscal year on this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Also like to call on the chief just to talk about some striping that we're going to be doing on curbs in the vicinity of the North Kansas City High School construction project to just emphasize some existing parking regulations that we have in place in that area. Chief?
Thank you, sir. With the loss of the high school parking lot next to the football stadium, we know that we're going to be challenged with people trying to find parking places before football games. There are areas around the school that have no parking signs on them now. 26th Avenue, I've got a couple of residents down there that we have chatted with, myself and Mr. Hoffer both, that are frustrated with people parking in a no parking area. We can write parking tickets on these vehicles, but because many of these people are coming to a football game from Port Osage, William Chrisman, whatever, we're writing fresh tickets every week because you're never going to educate those people. So what we would like to do is make the no parking areas around the stadium more visible. Two different ways. Number one, increase the signage down there. They're put up right now we have the universal no parking signs with the P and the line through it. I'm a believer in no parking anytime signs to go with that, just so somebody said, you know, if you hit them in the forehead with it, maybe they'll understand what you mean. The other thing that we want to do is paint the curbs in that area yellow, the entire curb line. Right now, we've got the safety zones around the entrances and exits and at the corners yellow, but we want to take that entire curb line yellow. Right now, I think we start on 26th Avenue from Erie all the way over to Howell, because that is an area that is frequently abused. I'm thinking that Fayette is going to be a challenge as well between 23rd and 26th. That's a lot of yellow to paint down through there, and I'm just concerned that we're going to have a lot of people that are going to violate the parking ordinances. And once again, if we need to write parking tickets, we'll do it. But I'd rather not have to deal with that and get people to park places where they know it's okay first. So, and if council's comfortable with it, we're just going to work with Public Works to enhance the visibility of those no parking areas and hopefully get voluntary compliance.
Will there be additional funds needed for that painting and stuff, or is that? I don't know if that's a chief question or Pat
Pat
Howard.
says no.
We can absorb that within our current budget.
Okay.
Fayette, is there no street parking on Fayette now?
Only on the northbound side, so the
just one
east
side.
side of the street,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
The west side of the street you can park.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to call on Public Works Director Pat Hauver. Pat?
Over the last couple of days, our city's been invaded by the Japanese beetle.
Oh, yeah.
Again? Well, I'm glad it's not news to everybody. I heard the mayor is taking measure at his house too about it, but I just thought I'd bring it to everyone's attention that it's swarming and they're on our flower beds. We have over 40 flower beds that we maintain downtown, the parks, and other corners. The measure that we're taking right now is spraying a liquid pesticide that is recommended for them. And that's about all we can do. So I've learned a lot about this, a crash course on these beetles. You know, it's bad enough to have the emerald ash borer, and now that was a beetle too, so we've got them both. But they should be by the end of August gone, and then if we have a harsh winter without a lot of snow, we'll have a very much reduced population. But and I have handouts, a two-page handout if anybody wants information about them, but they're going to be at your neighbors. They're devastating to anything with, they're in our trees, anything with leaves on it, and any crops, any gardens, flowers in particular. So
Grapes and apple trees. They
Apple
really
trees.
like my grapes, and they really like my apple tree.
You have grapes.
Going crazy.
Yeah.
Can you email that to us?
I can, yeah.
Okay, that would be good.
And we
Then
thought we
can
would
roll
try
it
to
out.
post something on our social media. Just
Okay, good.
Don't know if we can do much about it, but we can at least provide some information to the public.
Have you got a spray that will work?
Oh, yeah.
We're using Liquid 7 right now, and we
Yeah. And I've been fighting, I mean, I don't know, people know my backyard. My backyard, no grass, it's all plants. And I've been reading up on them. They, you know, like the rose bushes, they like them. And of course, when you spray, though, you're gonna kill bees. And I feel bad about that. I try to go out and then visually spray the leaf that the darn beetles are on. They just sit there and let you kill them. They're stupid. But I have read that, and I know it's a fact on my roses, that they will tear up the leaves, but it won't kill the plant. They just look like, you know, they don't look good. And they are attacking my, let's see, what is it? I got a tree in the backyard, Japanese something other, Maryland plant, I don't know what it is, but they do like it, but they are tough. And this is the second tough year with them. You know, I don't think I'd seen them until last year. But yeah, you got a battle on your hands. And in fact, I was coming back, getting towed back from Columbia, And the tow truck driver, we seen a plane spraying. And I said, what's he spraying for, you think? And he said, Japanese beetles. He said, they just tear up crops, you know, so. Yeah, I've seen them on the plants over the roses around the park over there. You know, and they just, like I said, they are bad. But I don't think they'll kill the plant. But they look dead, so.
They have traps for them too. Bags full of bugs.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Pat. I have one more item. This will take a few minutes. I'd like to get some input and direction from the city council on a couple of things. So this regards the North Kansas City High School construction project. J.E. Dunn is the contractor for that project. Project is scheduled to last from now until probably about the first part of October of 2019. Project hours, according to a letter that we've received from J.E. Dunn, would be from 7 in the morning till about 6 p.m. Realistically, though, from having discussions with him that the chief has had recently, they'll probably be done. I think they finish up about 3:30 as far as their workers, so they'll probably be done by 4 o'clock at the latest on most days. As you all know, the area there in the around the construction site is very tight, both on and around the construction site, because the high school was built right smack in the middle of a residential area. J. Dunn's indicating that at the height of the project, not right away, but perhaps at the very height of the project, they could have up to 200 workers on the site working on the project. The contractor, Dunn, spoke with our Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland, about a need to use some area on Howell Street, adjacent to Mackin Park, for construction staging on a short-term basis, and for employee parking, and also for using the Mackin Park parking lot on Clark Ferguson for employee parking during the course of the project. Sarah referred Dunn to the Parks Board. There are really two separate requests, I think, to what Dunn is asking of the city, which I'd like to address in turn. First, regarding the Howell Street area, the parking spaces, in particular, parking spaces there on the west side of Mack and the east side of Howell, adjacent to Mackin Park. The city councilor, Tom Barzee, determined that the Howell Street parking area is actually city right-of-way. It's not park property. So even though this matter did go to the Parks Board the other night, last week, at their meeting on last Thursday, decisions around that area are really the city council's rather than the Parks Board. Thus, I'm bringing this to you. Dunn is requesting to be able to use the parking spaces on Howell, as I noted, for employee parking, also for some material storage during an early stage of the project. Chief Beamer spoke to folks with J.E. Dunn over the last day or so to get more specific information about their request to use that area. So I'd like to turn it over to him to share with you what they're indicating to us.
Thank you, sir. In regards to the material staging, the building is going to be built out of precast concrete panels, similar to what you've seen going up down at Marodi's. Those are going to be coming in on flatbed trucks. They are currently looking at parking lots in the North Kansas City area where they can stage several trucks, because when they start the process of setting those, they're kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. One goes to the next, and they just want to keep that process moving, so they want to have those trucks in close proximity. So when they get the panels off of one, they can get that truck out of the way, get the next truck in to keep the process moving forward. So the majority of the trucks, and these panels are never going to be off the flatbed. They'll be brought to North Kansas City on a flatbed. They'll stay on the flatbed until they're pulled onto the job site, lifted off by crane, and then set in position. So they're looking at a parking lot where they can have potentially 5 or 6 trailers staged in that area. There may be some occasions where they're going to need to stage a couple of trailers on Howell where they would be parked in the parking spaces running parallel to the traffic lane. So from roughly Clark Ferguson up to, I'm going to say, 28th Avenue, potentially north to 29th Avenue, there could be trailers set there for no more than 24 hours. Now, they're not going to start setting these panels until probably January. And that will continue until roughly April. That's their window of time that they anticipate these things will be going up. So that's a time of the year when the park is probably at its lowest level of activity. From a traffic, public safety perspective, we have no objection to those trailers being set there as long as Dunn fulfills two conditions, and they've agreed to do that. Number one, if they drop a trailer off of the tractor, off the truck piece of it, they're going to have to set pads down for the dollies so they don't damage the asphalt when the dolly is set. Number two, they're going to have to use effective traffic safety cones around those trailers to alert traffic that they're there. But we're not talking about them being there for an extended period of time. It's just going to be short term and not necessarily every day. So from our perspective, from the police department perspective, it's not an issue.
We're going to have growing pains. I understand that. I mean, we need to assist them any way we can. I'm assuming since it came to us, the Parks Department must have told them no.
Well, there are two elements to this. The other regards Mackin Park parking lot, which I'd like to get to after we've talked about this.
Okay. But I see no problem with what as long as it's okay with the police department. I mean, I understand it's going to be short term and stuff, and like I said, it's going to be ongoing for the next year and a half. But we have to say yes because they're spending, what, $80 million? Come on.
We do recommend working with them on this.
The all material, once they get the precast panels in place and installed, Dunn has said that there will be no other construction material storage outside of the job site. So we won't be dealing with this over the entire length of the project. We're talking about this front end window when they're trying to get the walls up. We have also talked about parking on Howell for their construction workers. From our perspective, there's nothing that says they can't park in those spaces along Howell by Mackin Park. It is public parking. And if they want to use it, they're welcome to, just like they could use the other streets in the area. But Dunn is trying to be a good business partner in this and try to direct their parking to a certain area that the city agrees to.
Oh, are we talking about Howell first?
Yes, ma'am.
Materials? Okay, I have some questions on that. So you said your understanding, Chief Beamer, was about 24 hours. And then how often? Are we talking 24 hours 5 days a week, or are we talking 24 hours 1 day a week, or do you have any idea?
They weren't. It's all about staging, and until they start setting those panels, I don't think they could tell us today that it's going to be
like the pace of how
yeah, and
soon that's going to go.
And some panels may take longer to place than other panels, and so they may. It's all how the job site evolves as they're setting those panels, and it may be that tomorrow. One of the things is that the panels, when they're delivered, they are so big that they cannot travel on the highways during certain hours, on the interstate system during certain hours. And so they've got to have panels here at 7 a.m. to start work, and the next panels may not be here until potentially 10 or 11 if they have to wait until 9 o'clock to start rolling them down the highway to get them to the job site. And so that's part of the staging that they're looking at to keep their project moving forward. They may need materials on site the day before to start at 7 a.m. the next day. How often that's going to occur, I don't think anyone can predict right now. Okay. I did not get the sense, though, that it was going to be a daily event.
So you don't have any really concerns about the safety of the panels being stored there on the truck? I mean, they're secure, they're not going to fall, they're not going to, I mean, they're not a public safety concern for you.
In terms of the panels on the trucks, no. I mean, the traffic moving around them, we need to make sure that they're clear, that the area is safe by traffic cones. If it's going to be there overnight, recommending some flashing yellow lights just to increase the visibility of that area so somebody doesn't try and turn into a trailer. But in terms of the panels coming off or falling off, they've traveled down the interstate in that condition. I think they're probably going to be okay.
Okay. And if they messed up our nice new raised crosswalks, Pat, you'll fix those for us? Okay, because I really like those crosswalks. Everyone does, actually, I think. I like them, so that's all that matters. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'll talk.
All right, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I would like that. I actually was at the Parks meeting that night, and they did actually approve the use of that based off the time of year that they're currently projected.
It turns out that it's actually not a Parks Board decision.
Yeah,
it's a
I know, but I would say that it would have a direct impact on the parks, so I feel like their input should be important on this as well. Because you are talking about taking up a significant part of their parking on the west side. And then we'll talk, the other issue will be next, but that would also be take up a lot of their space. But no, they did approve, so they were agreeable to using that space based off the times
So I
that they were
understand, yes,
projecting.
sir.
Yeah, so sorry. Just want to make sure that that's all on this one.
So I just wanted to confirm, J.E. Dunn, they do construction here in Kansas City area, and they do not know how many, what was it, panels? They don't know how many panels they can do in a day, is that correct?
I think that's, the answer is yes. I don't think they can say that. It's going to depend on how much, there's so many variables. They put that thing on a crane, they start to set it. How windy is it? Is it going to marry up right with the one next to it? You know, if there's something that doesn't necessarily fit, how much are they going to have to manipulate it to get it in place? So, you know, it's wintertime. They start to work, it starts to snow, everything goes to thunder.
I think our building official, Mr. Harris, might have some input on that. Is that right?
Yes, the way they intend to construct the buildings on this facility, it's basically they're going to start along one section and build a building. So there's going to be times where they're going to come, and it might be 5 days a week, and they'll get all of the panels in place in like building A. And then they'll probably die off a little bit while they're constructing the structural part of buildings B. And so it's going to be intermittent as far as them placing the panels.
And when you said January to April, that's 2018.
Yes.
It shouldn't go longer than that, just 1 year or 4 months in that year.
Yeah, that's what I was told when I went down there and visited with him yesterday.
From the meeting, when the guy, Mr. Grassmuck, presented, he said it'd actually be in 2 phases. He said there would be one, approximately the time you said, and then another phase the second year when they...
Well, when they demo the field house, the existing field house, and they build the new, the building that's close to 23rd Avenue, the one that they haven't just demoed yet. When phase 2 goes into effect, then we'll be doing this all over again in phase 2.
So you'll come back to us on that phase, or somebody will?
We'll have to, because that's going to be, when we start working on 23rd Avenue, that's going to be an entirely different situation.
Depending on the time of year, that may be a totally different decision regarding Mackin Park. If it was right now, for example.
Right.
But we're going to be in for it for construction, and it's such a problematical type thing. You don't have any idea from one day or week to the next what's going to happen with weather and things that they may have to change in the middle of their operation. So this is something that we're going to be mentally have to be prepared for a lot of difficulties between now and hopefully not too many, but there's no cut and dried.
So, thank you, David. So, I'd like to, if there aren't any other questions about the Howell Street parking area, discuss the Mackin Park parking lot. So, again, that request does involve letting their employees park, not using it for any construction staging or anything like that, but using the Mackin Park parking lot for employee parking, employees of J.E. Dunn to park in as necessary during the course of the project. The Parks Board does have jurisdiction over this area according to state law, which provides that Parks Boards of cities have responsibility for the care and maintenance, and essentially the control of parks facilities within a city. Parks and Recreation Director Kelly Vitipka has advised me that the Parks Board directed her at their meeting to advise the contractor, J.E. Dunn, that the board declines to allow use of the Mackin Park parking lot for the employee vehicles from J.E. Dunn. I have spoken with Kelly, and I have asked her to ask the park board if they might not have a special meeting at which I would like to ask them to reconsider that decision. I've also asked the mayor and the police chief to join me at that to express their concerns. I know the chief is a little bit concerned about the impacts of that decision on the Parks Board's part. As has been stated now by several council members, the area around the construction site's tight, and Dunn employees are going to have to park somewhere. We know that. That's just a fact. If they're not allowed to park on the parking lot, and if the Howell Street spaces are filled up at the very height of the project when they have the most employees out there, then they are going to have to look for on-street parking in the neighborhoods surrounding the site. I think that's a concern to us. The Mackin Park parking lot is essentially a public parking lot, and Dunn is simply asking to use it for parking. I do think they did the right thing, the contractor, in asking rather than simply telling their employees to go park there. But realistically, the police department cannot enforce this decision on the part of the Parks Board. I believe a better approach would be to see if there's a problem. I think the Parks Board, as I understand it, was somewhat concerned about, taking spaces away from patrons that might be using the park. Again, the time of the day is such that I don't think there will be that much patron use of the park. If a problem were to arise, then I think that's a discussion we could have with J.E. Dunn to see if we could find some solution. But I think a better approach would be to see if there's a problem. As council members have stated, there's going to be inconvenience involved with this project over the course of it. And I think that as a community, we are happy with the school board's decision to renovate North Kansas City High School rather than go another route, which could have been locating the high school elsewhere. It's an important part of the community. I think we should try to work with the school district and the contractor whenever we can. So I would respectfully like to ask the Parks Board to reconsider their decision regarding Mackin Park, and that would be my intention. As I say, I have asked the director to look to see if we can't schedule a special meeting. Do you have any questions or input on that?
Did the Park Board, in their wisdom, devise a secondary plan for the 200 and some odd cars that the... I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Liz. Speak up.
When J.E. Dunn come to give us this information and what they wanted to do, we listened. We gave no comment. We didn't say yes. We didn't say no. We listened to him and would, with Eric, and as you well know, we didn't make a firm...
Kelly advised, I'm sorry if I'm getting different information, but Ms. Vitipka advised me that she was told by the Parks Board to tell the contractor that you do not want them to do that.
We didn't tell the...
Not while they were there, but she was told to tell them after the fact.
We didn't tell Dunn, is what I'm saying.
Perhaps, but you told her to tell Dunn that, correct?
She hasn't corresponded with him yet, has she?
She advised me that she was told, no, she has not, but she told me that that's the Parks Board wish. Is that not the case?
That is the case on the on the deal.
Mackin Park.
But actually talking directly to Dunn and telling him, no, we did not do that.
I understand that, but that is what the Park Board designed.
Is that the way you understood it, Bryant?
I'm trying to think. You guys did make a motion, yes, I believe, to direct her to tell them that you didn't want them to use that parking.
We did not say anything to Dunn.
No,
at that meeting.
No, Mr. Grassmuck left before you made that decision, and then she was to later correspond that. But then we had some questions over who's actually.
Why don't we just let's get this thing
I'd
worked out.
like you to get a definitive answer from the Parks Board, since
Inconvenience is going to be the operative word in this thing until the school is erected and the kids go into it. And I can't see having a worker carrying a 25-pound toolbox 4 blocks to get to the job. Maybe I'm being over sympathetic to the worker, but their morale's not going to be very good if they have to do that. That might even affect their attitude on the job. I don't know, but
Well, you're, Well, your question is there another lot, right?
Go ahead.
But you didn't get an answer to that question.
I didn't have anything. I
Oh,
really
sorry.
was just advising you that I intended to ask for a special meeting.
There-
If you- yeah.
I know you don't have an answer to this, but I know all 200 people aren't gonna park in this parking place.
No, and we would suggest, I think most of them will probably, while the spaces are there, seek to park in the areas on Howell
And
that are available.
Number two, my next question is how many people Monday through Friday actually use the space? Is there 10, is there 20, is there 50?
The Mackin Park parking lot?
Correct. I know you don't have an answer to that one
My
either.
impression is it's not very many
Yeah,
during the
if
daytime
there's no
hours.
events,
If the park
10 people
department,
down there.
Except on Fridays, during Friday in the park concerts.
I'm infuriated that the Parks Department don't have an open eye to let them use this space.
I am too. I think that was poor.
Zach?
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, there are going to be some growing pains. It's going to be inconvenient. I would like to see if the Parks Board can, work this out with J.E. Dunn. It's going to be temporary. Is this, did we say from January to April, or is this going to be throughout the project?
No, I think, again, during the height of the project, but their request is good throughout the project, which would go through the third quarter of 2019.
Because from what I've seen at the parks, we've got, we've got people that come pretty much after work. You've got some people that come during the day, but, and we're going to have that other parking lot over there too, once the parks building gets built, that people from the park can park there and go across the street. So I would like to see, unless the Parks Board can tell us, and I don't know if Liz can comment to this, what their concerns are, or if we don't even want to get into that now, but we don't, okay. So strike that. Then let's just, yeah, I agree with Bill and Tom. Let's see if we can't work something out and get it done.
I have a couple questions. So, my first is a comment. I mean, I don't think we're here to throw stones at the park board. We're here to help advise and give direction on where you should go next, right?
Yes.
So that's just my comment. My questions are, you mentioned that in the height of the project, there'll be 200 workers. So do they have a project plan that sort of indicates when the height of that project is, or if it is multiple times, or if it's one peak? Do you know any
I don't
information
think
on
we've
that?
seen that yet. What we have is a letter from them, and that's what it indicated. Chief, did
Okay.
you have any further information? Or David, for that matter?
what they told me the other day was while they're setting walls, there may be only 50 or so employees on site. Once they get the walls up, once they get a roof on it, and they can actually start to do some of the interior work,
More of the finish work?
the electrical, the plumbing, sheetrock, things like that, that's when you're going to start to see the spike in the number of workers that are on site.
So that could go in different phases as there are different buildings?
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, I just wanted to kind of understand, are we heading to one peak, or it sounds like it could go up?
There is a proposed construction schedule, and as I was mentioning before, they'll start at Wing A or Building A, and then do Building B and C.
Okay.
And then once they start the interior, all of the finish work is going to be it's probably going to be more of early next year, where they're going to have a lot of laborers indoors, and so it is going to peak at a certain time. They're going to finish one building, and then it'll go down, and it'll peak. But they do have a proposed construction schedule, and J.E. Dunn is willing to work with us on the schedules and the timing and where to park, and so they do have an outline of and timing of what they want to do.
Okay, if we had like a Friday event or something at the park, could we work with them to find another option for those?
By all means.
And actually, that gets me to my next and I think last question. Are there any other options? Because I know we're talking about Mackin Park and that lot, but are there other, I mean, I know we're tight here and we're in a residential area, but are there other options we should be looking at?
I think I heard something about how the Parks Board suggested to them that they might talk to NT Realty about using private parking on the south side of Armour. It seems like a little bit of a distance from the site, but there are no other public options that we're aware of other than on-street parking.
Bill, you go parking lots up there fine.
Yeah, that's not in my control.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yeah.
I think you're proper in going back to the board I think what the park board probably, had a knee-jerk reaction that I probably would have had, like, my gosh, are they gonna use all our parking places? I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think the park board should rethink it in the sense that and like you said, if it becomes a problem, we can readdress it and move some of their vehicles out. Personally, during the day, even during good weather, I never see more than a half a dozen cars in that parking lot. And I check on the new building all the time, so I know what I'm talking about. That parking is never full. It'd be more of a problem on how parking, because it is full all the time. But I don't think it'd be the problem the park board may think right now. And so I think I'd like for them to readdress it and say, okay, we'll let them park there, but we'll agree to come back with them if it becomes a problem. We're looking at a problem before we have one type thing.
I do believe from being at the meeting, J.E. Dunn seemed very willing to work, but so I think there comes some sort of agreement. They have the schedule. They know where they are in the project to come to Kelly, to come to the board maybe every quarter. And if it does get delayed into a certain area, then, maybe say there's going to be some days where
I'm sure they'd be
we don't
happy.
utilize. So I'm sure they would be willing to come in.
I do have one other idea I could throw out. I don't know. Please tell me if they don't like it, but it's going to be a mess down there, on 26th Street anyway. So why not open up both sides of that for parking for them? Cover up the no parking signs.
Can't hardly get a vehicle down through it then. You're going to have trucks that are coming and going from that job site on 26th Avenue. That's the approved route in and out of the job site. And if you have two large vehicles, one eastbound, one westbound there, I don't think you get a pumper down through it.
Yeah, probably couldn't. They probably may not be able to make the turn at the corner either.
Right.
Yeah. So much for that stuff.
Growing pains.
That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Brian.
Nothing.
Oh, good. Just a few things. I wanted to know if you can let J.E. Dunn know, or if maybe I need to call them myself, or I don't know how you want to work this, but living on Fayette, right behind the school, is my backyard. I wanted to let them know that there is one of their trash bins that throughout every evening, there are several people coming with trucks and dumping their trash in there. A couple of times we have actually spoken to a few of them, and they say that they are the employees of J.E. Dunn. So I just wanted to let them know that people are using their trash bin, and maybe ask them if they want to maybe lock it up.
We'll be happy to talk to them about that.
I thought they'd want to know that, so. And then the next thing is the alleyway between the school and my house is a lot smaller now. And people, I'm noticing that there are a lot of people that are starting to park there. So I just didn't know if that's a new parking area, or if maybe they're not supposed to be there, or if, I don't know. I'm kind of curious as to find out if that's a new parking space.
You could sell those spots, maybe.
I don't think we've designated it as anything new.
No,
Okay.
We'll look at it, because there still has to be a fire lane down there to access that field house. At least till the end of the field house, that has to have fire lane access.
I don't know if it's because that gate that J.E. Dunn has up, you can't see, and so maybe people are trying to hide while they're doing things back there. I don't know, but we've noticed a lot of cars parked in that alleyway.
During daytime hours?
Daytime, weekends, yeah.
All right.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Pat Hauber and his crew for the awesome raised crosswalks in our neighborhood. And then Councilmember Sanders can report on his own about what he thinks about those raised crosswalks. But thank you for that. They look great, and thank you for that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that it's nice to see some work on the Parks and Rec building. I mean, there has been work on the Parks and Rec building, but it's actually like there are walls and frames and things coming up, so that's fun. And that is all I have.
I don't think I want to get into the raised crosswalks. I had
Chicken.
I'm personally happy with they're all right, but it's not a big deal for me. A number of my constituents think they're really wussy. They don't like them, and they were under the impression, they were under the impression that it would slow traffic down. And it doesn't slow traffic down. People have gone over it at over 40 miles an hour, and it doesn't slow down. And as I talked to Chief Beamer, I said, strangers coming down the street, or people who don't normally travel down there, see that, and they'll slow down, which is good. That's what they're supposed to do, especially if there's someone entering the crosswalk. But people who travel that road regularly, citizens or people who are going through regularly, they know how fast they can go across that thing. And you can go across it at over 40 miles an hour without doing any damage to your automobile. So if they're used to that, I don't see how that's going to deter them from slowing down. But that's just a lot of people's opinion.
I've just mentioned they are not speed humps, of course not speed bumps, but they're a traffic calming measure. And they also, with the signage and the stripes, the elevated pavement with the stripes on there, really people pay attention and they know it's a crosswalk.
Yeah.
But no, I agree it's not necessarily slowing down traffic, but it's not meant to.
But I do thank you for putting them up. They're pretty.
They're new.
They're new.
Shiny and new.
Zach, are you done?
I'm done.
Couple of things. First of all, I'm having withdrawals tonight since there's no Sarah Copeland talking about anything. You know, she's usually here. But looks like she got a well-deserved night off, so good for her.
She's on vacation.
Oh, she's on vacation. Okay, well, cool. So first of all, I wanted to express a couple of comments that I've received from neighbors or from residents in our ward. They are very happy about the city broadcasting the city council meetings on Channel 2. They're, watching us. I mean, there are people that are watching, so they appreciated the investment that we made. Just one comment that they would ask is that, that you speak directly into the mic if you can so that they can hear everything that we say. So just somebody threw that out to me today when I was walking the neighborhood.
We're trying to be very entertaining tonight.
There you go, yeah. Let's see, I want to also thank Chief Beamer for a couple items that I had questions on, and as always, he's always prompt in responding to those, so thank you, Chief. Let's see, and I want to thank Stacy for her work on the ordinance and the code. Good work. I hope you're getting some good experience and hope you're enjoying your stay here in North Kansas City. And let's see. Can't even read my writing here. Oh, also we got a couple of compliments from as long as the Japanese beetles don't eat them all. The flowers and the flower beds and the way the downtown looks. Public Works and Municipal Services did a great job as well. So they're very pleased with the flowers and the way downtown looks. So throw that out to your guys, Pat. That's it.
I'd like to see, maybe Chief Beamer knows, how's that new stop sign doing at 22nd and Knox? Very many people run it, or do you know?
I cannot tell you off the top of my head if we've written any violations on it or not. Traveling that area myself, I have not seen any stop sign violations. But as far as any enforcement actions, I cannot speak to that at this time. If you want, I can get back to you on that.
Now, I'm just curious. Myself, I walked down there a lot and everything. I've never seen anybody run it yet. I expected some people at first to do it. I've had some good comments from people that own the little store. They said it's really helped that slow people down in that block because there was a traffic. There's been some pretty bad wrecks right there at that little intersection before. So I think it was a good idea. I agree with the crosswalks. I slow down because I'm supposed to, and I don't want to get caught being a council person speeding. But they wouldn't slow me down if I didn't really want to slow down. But like you said, I see them though. I'd like to have had those solar flashing lights though. I'm sure everybody's probably seen those. One Harris has them. I'd like to have had those. If you have any problems at 22nd Knox, they got stop signs now with a little solar panel on top of them, and they have flashing red lights. That might be an idea if we have problems anywhere, you know. And I was so glad to see the park building come up above the ground and putting walls up, termite-proof walls, I might add, all metal. It must have been a hot job this week, so. But I did like to see that's some progress. I got to get them up before they can really close it in. And I guess that's about all I have. Well, I appreciate the study they're doing on sidewalks for the whole year. And they, I think you had Chris out checking some, and they're either on the list or saying they're not bad enough. But at least we're looking, and I appreciate that.
Fred?
Well, to me, it just seems like July's moving right along. I really don't have much of anything tonight. I will mention that there's going to be a movie in the park. It starts at dusk on July 28th. Don't have much more than that.
Just wanted, heat advisory this week. Just want to make sure everybody goes checks on their friends and neighbors. Make sure your pets are inside, your neighbors' pets are inside, or give them plenty of water, shelter, whatever, because it's going to be brutal this week. That's the only thing I have to say.
Check on your elderly neighbors.
I didn't say elderly. We'll call you.
Call me, would you?
I'll call you.
I don't have anything.
Move to
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?